The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
Kiefer the Reefer Sherwood. He is the reason to watch the Vancouver Canucks. But should they actually re-sign him?
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host of Locked On Canucks, and not joined today by Kyle Ballin, but I'm joined with him in spirit, and I'm also joined by Kiefer Sherwood. Man, oh man, at least in spirit too, man. This guy has been unreal for the Vancouver Canucks. But the question I wanted to ask today, should the Canucks actually re-sign this guy? And feel free to interact with us wherever you interact with your podcast, here on YouTube Live or after the fact. But it is one of the most fascinating decisions the Vancouver Canucks will have to make in the next 12 months. Because Kiefer Sherwood, 9 goals in 13 games, has been unreal for this hockey team, but it's not going to be cheap to keep him. And I want to look today a little bit past all the goals for Kiefer Sherwood, because that's where he's providing most of his value right now for this hockey club. And for me, there's an intangible part of it too. Again, the guy just works his ass off every shift, celebrates every goal like it's his last goal in the NHL, and a guy that's been a good influence for some of the younger guys in the organization as well. But when you start to look at the comparables for Kiefer Sherwood, it doesn't necessarily paint the prettiest picture because, again, it seems like middling organizations make this move where a guy has a breakout season at the age of 30 or around that age, and then signs the big contract, and then maybe it's not so much the same after the fact. I truly believe that Kiefer Sherwood might be the outlier, and you could call me biased. You could say, I got the blue and green glasses on, and I'm an idiot for thinking that the Canucks should give Kiefer Sherwood the bag here. But again, he is right now the heart and soul of the Vancouver Canucks, especially after they traded away JT Miller last season. Now, Kiefer Sherwood right now, he's accounted for over almost 1/3 of the Canucks goals. It was 29% before the Minnesota game, so he's still over, more than one in every 4 goals scored this season have been off the stick of Kiefer Sherwood. And look, I don't want to bring it up. He's not going to shoot, 31% forever, right? But can he be a 30-goal guy for the Vancouver Canucks? I really think that's in reach for Kiefer Sherwood. Because again, even just digging into it, he's one of the fastest skaters on this team. He's up there probably in about the 78th percentile among NHL forwards in terms of his speed. He's got one of the hardest shots in the NHL. We've seen that as well. And he can score in multiple different ways. And I think the St. Louis game, we talked about it. Everydayers know that was the perfect example. Scoring the greasy one at the net on the power play, banging it home, scoring the breakaway goal in that game, and then the wrist shot, the howitzer that went past Jordan Binnington. Kiefer Sherwood can score in a number of ways, and he's proven some utility on the power play. And of course, he's been one of the top penalty killers for this team as well. But again, the comps for Kiefer Sherwood, let's dig into it. And the Athletic had their player comps. I've tried to look up a couple myself in terms of guys who, again, got the bag. It's hard to find comparables for Kiefer Sherwood because most players don't have breakout years at the age of 29 or at the age of 30. It's pretty rare when it comes to NHL players, especially ones that are having an impact like Kiefer Sherwood is. You think about a guy like the Derek Ryans of the world having a breakout at age 29, right? But he was a 15-goal, 35-point guy. He wasn't a guy with the ability to push 30 goals in one season, which Kiefer Sherwood absolutely has the ability to do for your Vancouver Canucks. Just look at some of the comps here from the Athletic in terms of Kiefer Sherwood, his trajectory. So some of the comps include Darren Helm, Rafi Torres, good old Yannick Hansen, and players as well like Jason Zucker. Jason Zucker, to me, is one of the most interesting names up there. But even Jason Zucker, he was starting to have breakout seasons, in his early to mid-20s, right? It was 2017-18 with the Wild at the age of 25 where he put up 33 goals and 64 points. and never quite hit the same heights after that. Although he has hit 20 goals on 3 other occasions in his career after that, and they're all drastically spaced out. And I know a guy like that had injury issues. That's something that Kiefer Sherwood has been able to avoid so far as any kind of injury troubles. Knock on wood, because everyone's falling down for your Vancouver Canucks. Let's hope the curse of Beggsy doesn't live on here. But again, Jason Zucker broke out at a much younger age, was more highly touted. But again, he's gone on to have a pretty good career, having success last season with the Buffalo Sabres, having some success in Pittsburgh as well. But even last year, looking at the Sabres, he was, 5th on the team in scoring, has over 50 points. And again, he's a guy who's now 32, 33 years old. And again, that's a guy making around $5 million. And he signs some shorter term deals as well. I'm not quite sure if you're going to get a shorter term deal with Sherwood. This is a guy who should be looking to cash in. This is a guy who's barely made money in the NHL compared to some of his counterparts, right? This is a guy that's getting paid $10 million less per season than Elias Pettersson, but he's having a bigger impact for this hockey team. And look, I think Kiefer Sherwood understands the grind. I'm not going to say it's all about the money for him, but this is their livelihood, right? These guys usually have one chance at getting a nice big fat contract. And I don't want to see him become unmotivated after that. I don't think Kiefer Sherwood's that guy, but there is risk here from the Canucks perspective about giving him a bigger deal. Now, one of the interesting things with Sherwood as well is that one of the flaws in his game is that the Canucks don't do well possession-wise when he's on the ice. And they're not a great possession team. We all know that. This is a middling bunch until they prove otherwise. Kiefer Sherwood raising the floor of this team due to the fact that he hits, gets under the opponent's skin, and knows how to put the puck in the back of the net. But the Canucks, they've tended to get outplayed when he's been on the ice overall. And that hurts me to say because Kiefer Sherwood, man, oh man, this guy, one of the most fun players in the NHL. But the Canucks, again, he's part of the problem defensively too. And you try to dig into that. And again, he's had a bit of a revolving door of linemen with the Canucks. They play him up and down the lineup. I think that doesn't necessarily help as well. He's a guy that hasn't played a lot on the ice with Quinn Hughes either. And we all know the Quinn Hughes effect in Vancouver, right? Even casual viewers know this. The Canucks over the past few seasons with Quinn Hughes on the ice, one of the best teams in the league, controlling possession, scoring goals. Without Quinn Hughes on the ice, they've been one of the worst teams in the NHL. And, that's to an extent should be expected when, you have the best defenseman in the world on your hockey team. All of a sudden, he's not on the ice. You're not going to be as good. But the stark difference between Quinn Hughes on the ice and off the ice for the Vancouver Canucks, it's something to be amazing, to be honest. I mean, again, with him on the ice, they're the Edmonton Oilers, the Winnipeg Jets, teams that have done well in the NHL. Without him on the ice, they've been San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim Ducks territory. The Anaheim Ducks of old, I know they're off to a hot start this season. And again, the Canucks look to have addressed that with Phil Pronik and Marcus Pettersson coming over. But it's still kind of the same story for the Canucks. And at least it was certainly the story last season where there's been a larger sample size for this team. So that's one of my theories as to why, Kiefer Sherwood hasn't performed as well on the ice, defensively at least. And again, he's been a bit of a high event player. So just like over the past season and change of the Vancouver Canucks, the Canucks are getting more scoring chances. When Kiefer Sherwood's on the ice, no surprise there. Boom, bam. Kiefer Sherwood getting to the dirty areas. They're also giving up more as well, though. But I do attribute that to the defense. And part of the reason I bring it up is because when you think about potentially re-signing a guy like Kiefer Sherwood to the contract that he's probably going to get, you got to consider all aspects of the game. The defensive side. Obviously chance creation. We all know about that in Vancouver. We all know about the hits. But is he a good 200-foot player? I think the numbers don't tell the whole story because he hasn't really been on the ice all that much with Quinn Hughes. And your teammates, again, he's only one of 5 guys on the ice, even though he tries to do the work of 3 guys sometimes. You're only as good as your surroundings, and I think that plays into Kiefer Sherwood's, middling defensive results. And that's why some of the, the guys at The Athletic were saying, oh, his defensive card's not great, and he's a replacement level player, and he's the next Darren Helm. They're not considering all the factors with Kiefer Sherwood. Now, on the other side, I want to give you my final take. Should the Canucks re-sign Kiefer Sherwood or should they trade him? Because it's one or the other, right? You can't, with Alvin, you never know after what happened with P.U. Suter, but you can't just let this guy walk to unrestricted free agency and leave this hockey team for nothing. It's sign or trade. Hopefully, Alvin's learned his lesson, and I'll tell you what I think the Canucks should do on the other side here on Locked On Canucks. All right, before we get back to the program, let's shout out our friends over at FanDuel. Man, it was a sports gasm this weekend. I was so amped up, I forgot to hit the mic when I recorded the postcast. Sorry about that for those who tuned into the postcast. Dead air for 45 seconds. I promise I wasn't me just wanking off in the background. I just forgot to hit the mic button. But again, great sports weekend. The Lions won, the Whitecaps won, the Canucks lost, the Blue Jays lost. That was kind of what I predicted going into the day. Not that I bet against my teams. Okay, I'm not that guy. I'm emotional. But again, if you want to find the value, you can do so on FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And again, you can, if you miss the start of the game, you can bet on, in-game bets as well. Live bets from everything on who will score to who will get the third period comeback. And of course, my daughter's favorite, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. So right now, again, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head on over to FanDuel.com and sign up to play your game with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Before we get back to it, let's shout out our friends over at Monarch. Talk about the monies, okay? Kiefer Sherwood not making much compared to the rest of his team. But no matter if you're making Elias Pettersson money, Kiefer Sherwood money, or Trevor Beggs podcasting money, you should go check out Monarch, okay? Because no matter how much you have, it can be easy to lose track of your investments, savings, all that stuff. And that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings together your entire financial life in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. And Monarch, man, not only has it helped me get my life in order, it's eased my stress, baby. Let's go. Where's the lovemaking button? Because Monarch Money helping me in the lovemaking department. On Monarch, you can combine your savings, your investments with your partners. I've done that with my wife, and that means less stress, and that means I last 43 seconds longer in the sack, thanks to Monarch. So make sure you check out Monarch. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at Monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year, baby. All right, we're back here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day. And before I get my take, I want to get into what the viewers are feeling, the listeners here on Locked On Canucks. We're nothing without you, baby. Sensei in the comments, spitting some truth here and saying, just like Bo Bichette for the Blue Jays, Kiefer is the type of player Canuck fans can relate to, an everyday guy who puts in an effort every shift, like Garland. They have weaknesses, but improve year to year. Sensei is also on team. Re-sign him so he can show everyone what effort is needed and how hard work is required. And I think Sensei makes a good point, because this is where the decision to re-sign Kiefer Sherwood goes more with the intangible side of things. Of course, he's producing on the ice. I don't think the defensive flaws in his game, if you want to put it that way, are as pronounced as maybe some national insiders make it out to be. But again, it's a big decision. Like, are you going to give this guy a 5x5 contract? Let's just throw it out there. A guy who's 30 years old right now could probably command $4 to $5 million. Could it even be more if he truly keeps up this scoring streak? Again, the bottom number at the end of the day is going to play into this. But if this guy hits 30 goals, man, oh man, he's going to be a hot commodity in the free agent market, on the trade market, and it's not going to be cheap for the Canucks to keep him. And I think that's why someone like Zach is saying in the comments, if he stays dominant, Alvin is probably going to trade him. Because look, this guy, even as a rental, could you get a first-round pick for Kiefer Sherwood if he's on a 30-goal pace and he's leading the NHL in hits? Scouts know. The Canucks knew when they played Kiefer Sherwood in the first round back in 2024. This is a guy that you win playoff games with. But again, in terms of signing and keeping Kiefer Sherwood, I think it's the path that the Canucks got to go down. And look, there's risk here. Let's touch on that in a minute. But in terms of just signing Sherwood, I think Sensei hit it on the head. He's a relatable guy that fans can relate to because he works his ass off, much like Connor Garland does. And look, Connor Garland also got the extension from the Vancouver Canucks. And again, Connor Garland, what was he, 28, 29 when he got that extension? So you're extending guys kind of in that same window. There is risk for the Canucks, though, of course, depending on the trajectory of the team. I'm saying right here, right now, on Monday, November 23rd, I would be re-signing Kiefer Sherwood, even if that price tag is 4 or 5 years, $4 or $5 million, because he's a culture carrier for this team. He's a guy who I don't think is really going to slow down because he works too damn hard. I think he knows the grind of coming up through the ranks in the NHL. He got the opportunity, didn't get back for a while, and I don't think he's going to give it up anytime soon. I think he can be an outlier in terms of the aging curves because he already is an outlier. What guy is having a breakout season at the age of 30 in the NHL? It doesn't happen often. And Kiefer Sherwood is doing it right now for the Vancouver Canucks. He's also a fan favorite in the city. That matters too. You know, the fan favorite last season, voted by you, the fans. And again, with the cap going up the way it is, $5 million is not that big of a deal at the end of the day. You're basically signing a low-end second-line player at a $5 million price tag. That's just the truth of it in today's NHL. And look at the contracts this team has handed out. I mean, Jake DeBrusk, 5.5. Connor Garland at 6. Let's talk about DeBrusk for a second, but who would you rather have on your team, Jake DeBrusk or Kiefer Sherwood? I think you sign Kiefer Sherwood to the extension. Again, he can play up and down your lineup. You know, that price tag, $4.5, $5 million, not going to be a big deal at the end of the day. And this is a guy who I don't think is going to slow down over the next few seasons. He might not he might not break Pavel Bure's goal record, let's put it that way. But he can, I think, be a solid 20 to 30 goal scorer for this team. Great middle six player who can play power play, who can play penalty kill, who can get under the opponent's skin. And man, oh man, if this Canucks team make the playoffs, that's the guy you want on your team. Now, the caveat to my take about the Canucks re-signing Sherwood. What if they suck? They're 6-7 right now. Well, I'm not going to talk about tonight's game because it's a few hours away, but 6-7 right now. Again, it's been a middling start to the season. You look at some of the numbers, the expected goals. They're one of the worst teams in the NHL. They've been bailed out by goaltending. Again, they're completely banged up right now. You got to consider that as well. But we'll get to on the other side with Goats of the Week. Two guys who aren't on there are Brock Besser and Elias Pettersson, who have no points in the last 3 games, had no points last week for the Vancouver Canucks. Look, this team, if Kiefer Sherwood's going to be your top dog all season long and no one else is going, they're not going to go very far, no matter how well he plays. If the Canucks are a bottom feeder by the Olympic break, it's going to be a tough sell, a tough argument to re-sign Kiefer Sherwood if this team is bottom 10 in the NHL. Because again, let's work under that theory that he keeps it up, that he keeps pushing a 30-goal pace, that he's leading the NHL in hits, that he's one of the best players in the lineup for the Canucks each and every night. And you can get a first-round pick for him in a deep draft. At that point, it'd be hard to turn down. But I think, again, the Canucks are going to be in a tough position because I think there's a good chance that they're in a similar spot to last year where they get close to the trade deadline and all of a sudden they're right in the mix of the race. They're right there. I just don't think you can walk Kiefer Sherwood to unrestricted free agency. Again, the Canucks got lucky with Brock Besser. Even Brock Besser didn't think he was going to come back. He was kind of the third option after they reportedly wanted to chase some other centers in the market. You can't do the same thing with Kiefer Sherwood again. You got to decide before the trade deadline on whether you're going to re-sign him or whether you're going to trade him. Again, I'm team re-sign unless the team absolutely bottoms out and sucks by January, February. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to be stuck squarely in the middle of the pack. And I don't care if they're in the middle of the pack. I want Kiefer Sherwood on my hockey team if that's the case. Re-sign the dude. One of the best dudes in Vancouver. One of the best free agent signings in this team's history. The second best free agent signing this team has ever had, aside from Alex Burrows, in my opinion. But again, if the Canucks are bottom feeding by the time the Olympic break comes, you got to trade Kiefer Sherwood, especially if he's having a season or is on the same trajectory that he is now. Man, oh man, let's see in the comments. What's everyone else saying in the comments here at Locked On Canucks before we get to the GOATs of the week? Lefty all around saying $3.8 million max for Sherwood on a 3-year contract. Again, and other commenters like Rat saying Sherwood's peaking, hasn't made a ton of money. He will get paid. Kiefer Sherwood is going to get paid. He's going to get paid more than $3.8 million a season. I'm going to go back to Sensei here for a second, who threw out some numbers as well. Sensei was saying 5 times 5 would be my choice. $6 million too much. I kind of agree with that. I mean, as good as Sherwood is, like, they're unfortunately in this day and age, it's always been that way, but now we just know it because we can look it up online. There is a cap on what you pay a player, and $6 million I think would be too much for Sherwood. But if he can get 5, I think Sherwood would be stoked by 5 times 5. That's money that he would almost be 10xing his career earnings if he were to sign a contract like that. Rattle say in the comments, Sherwood's a culture carrier. They missed an opportunity from management not to re-sign him at the end of last season. Kyle and I were kind of saying that, man. Once in a while, we get it right here on Locked On Canucks, and we were saying you should probably look at re-signing Sherwood now, just based on sometimes there's worry if a guy has a career year like that. But man, oh man, if the Canucks made that bet, and it would have been some hesitation from some fans at the time if they did make that bet. But if you made the bet, then you're probably getting him at around 3.5. He would have signed for that at that time. Now he's closer to a $5 million player. But I still think the Canucks should re-sign him unless they are a bottom feeder. Speaking of Sherwood and a few other Canucks, let's get to on the other side. We do this every Monday, the GOATs of the week. That's coming up here on Locked On Canucks. All right, before we get back to the program, let's shout out our friends over at Gametime, baby. And if you're buying tickets, Gametime's the spot you got to go, whether it's Canucks tickets, whether you're going to travel and see the BC Lions, whether it's watch the Whitecaps on their playoff push, whether it's going to go see a concert. No, Kyle Bowen at concerts this weekend, man. I wonder if he'll be DJing one of those shows. A great DJ as well. Kyle Bowen, a man of many talents. If you're making some money off your talents, looking to buy some tickets, make sure you go check out Gametime. They're the only place I go if I'm buying tickets. It's not because I'm a company man. It's because Gametime's got the lowest price guarantee, baby. So if you find tickets for cheaper on another app, Gametime will credit you with 110% of the difference. They got your back. So make sure you go check them out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download that Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go, baby. All right, I'm back here on Locked On Canucks. Trevor Beggs, not joined by Kyle Bowen. Maybe we'll get Kyle Bowen tonight on the post-game show. Who knows? But I do know that I got some of you watching our YouTube live. Maybe listen on the podcast. Maybe I'm on a walk with you right now. Who knows? But I appreciate the hell out of you for being here. Speaking of things I appreciate it, let's get to it. Our GOATs of the week. All right, our GOATs of the week. We do this every Monday here on Locked On Canucks. And the last week for the Vancouver Canucks included a 2-0 loss to the New York Rangers, a 4-3 shootout win over the St. Louis Blues, and a 5-2 loss on Saturday to the Minnesota Wild. And I talked about it on an abbreviated podcast. The score wasn't quite as bad as it looked for your Vancouver Canucks. For those who watched the game, if you were distracted by the World Series or something else, I don't blame you. The Canucks aren't one of the best teams in the league or anything right now. But there was some moments where they pushed in that game. And this is a very undermanned roster trying to get the job done. But let's cut the crap here. A bit of a tough week from Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser. I mentioned it. No points for either player. And I know there's signs that they're creating. And I had my theories as to why it's not really working on that line with Jake DeBrusk right now. None of them seem to be able to get to the net. So again, it was depth players and goaltending that stepped up for the Canucks this week, in my view. And of course, the number one GOAT is pretty damn obvious. It's Kiefer Sherwood, who with the 3 goals this week all came in one game. Obviously, shut out against the Rangers. He didn't score against the Wild, but just one of the most impactful players for the Canucks throughout the season, and to me, the most deserving GOAT of the week. Again, he almost single-handedly won us that St. Louis Blues game just by being the only guy that scored. I know Evander Kane scored there as well, but that one got disallowed. Kiefer Sherwood, the GOAT of the week. He's actually second overall in the GOAT rankings this season, which makes sense. I think there's been 2 MVPs for the Canucks. It's been Thatcher Demko, and it's been Kiefer Sherwood. Maybe I'll talk about the GOAT of the week standings here in a second. But overall this week, after Kiefer Sherwood, number 2, Drew O'Connor. Who? Kevin O'Connell? Kevin Connolly? Drew O'Connor. Look, not a sexy player, but a guy who also, like Kiefer Sherwood, has the care level. He works his ass off. A quick skater, the NHL Edge data. And we see it out there. He's one of the quickest skaters on the Vancouver Canucks, despite being a big boy. And again, the offense from his game has always been kind of lacking. I mean, when a guy scores 16 goals and 33 points, and he mainly plays with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, that's a bit of a concern. But he did get rewarded finally in the Minnesota game with a couple bingos. Gets a couple assists on Kiefer Sherwood goals in the St. Louis Blues game as well. Drew O'Connor leading the Canucks with 4 points in 3 games this week. And again, I think he's been rewarded for some solid work out there. And I think early on, this guy's getting K possession-wise. He's working hard, but things just aren't happening when he's on the ice. And it's like, why did they keep this guy over Dakota Joshua? And I think finally there was a bit of correction there, and things are trending in the right direction for Drew O'Connor. And as much as I love O'Connor and Sherwood, I'm just saying, when these are your top 2 GOATs of the week, it makes sense that the Canucks won 1 of 3 games this week. Man, oh man. Okay, number 3, I got Kevin Lankin. I know he played the 1 game, but the Canucks got shelled in that game. Shots were 38-17, I believe. I'm going off the top of my head here. Obviously shuts the door in the shootout, has the best NHL save percentage in shootout history, not just this season. He's 7 for 7, but in NHL history has the best shootout save percentage. I know probably maybe a goal in that game he wants back, but again, one of the main, aside from Sherwood, he was the reason the Canucks won that game. Number 4, I got Thatcher Demko, who had another great game against the Rangers. Really kept the Canucks in the game against the Wild. I know they were pushing at points, but they gave us some high danger chances that Demko thwarted. He did have the 1 bad goal as well. Again, in Thatcher Demko's worst week of the season, he's still the number 4 GOAT of the week, which again speaks to the rest of the hockey team. And number 5, I got Aatu Räty. And I do think it's been a bit of an adventure for Aatu Räty at times this season, but he does one thing well, which is win faceoffs. And the Canucks are starting to control possession with him on the ice this week as well. Maybe taking advantage of some softer matchups. Maybe it's the fact that he's largely playing with Kiefer Sherwood. That helps. Also on the line with Drew O'Connor. Aatu Räty, Drew O'Connor, and Mackenzie McEachran. What a dreaded trio there, scoring a goal against the Minnesota Wild. I love the care level on Aatu Räty's game as well. And again, I'm not saying the Stars don't care in Vancouver, but man, oh man, when you don't have Hughes and Garland in your lineup, you'd really hope that Besser and Pettersson could step it up, and they just haven't done it to the extent that this team needs. And same could go for a guy like Jake DeBrusk as well. Evander Kane, I didn't want to put him in that category. He's playing a little bit better. Not good enough for go to the week territory. But that's the top 5. For those who are new to the show, basically what we do is first place gets 5 points, 5th gets 1, and so on and so forth. So the GOAT of the season so far, we have Thatcher Demko with 14 points, Kiefer Sherwood with 11 points, Garland with 9 points, Elias Pettersson with 7 points. Drew O'Connor jumps all the way up to 5th place with the 2nd place performance this week. He's got 4 points on the season. Man, oh man, that says something about the state of these Vancouver Canucks. Let's see if there's one more comment as we wrap up here on Locked On Canucks. Let's see. I'm going to go back to Sensei one more time here. I'm liking Lukas Reichel. He keeps his feet moving and seems to find the seams. A lot of seam talk there. I've said it before. Lukas Reichel, he's been unlucky that he hasn't scored yet for the Vancouver Canucks. There are parts of his game I certainly don't love, and I think one thing Foot got right in the last game was getting his ice time back down to around that 13, 14-minute range as opposed to the 17 minutes he was playing. You know, Lukas Reichel, I think, is a bit of an adventure defensively. He gets pushed off the puck pretty easily, but he can skate like the wind, and he's got good hands. He's going to find ways to score goals if he keeps playing the way he's been playing for this hockey team. And then one more stat here. Lefty as well in the comments. Last one. Here's a stat for you. When Hughes is on the ice, the Canucks have a 65.5 scoring chance percentage as compared to 42.8 when he is off the ice. Yeah, and Hughes has been off the ice far too much for the Vancouver Canucks this season due to injury. He's expected to be back tonight against the Nashville Predators. That's what the sources are saying. We'll see if that's the case. Regardless of what happens, we should have you covered on the post-game show here on Locked On Canucks. I'm going to get out of here for now. Appreciate each and every one of you for listening to this, wherever you are, whoever you are. If you like what we're doing, you can share the show with a friend, a colleague, share it with your mom. I know quite a few moms listen to Locked On Canucks. Big thing for moms for sure. On the podcast side, you can follow us, leave a 5-star review, helps us out a lot, helps me feed my family. And on the podcast side, make sure you like the video, hit the like button. It's easy. Just tap that thumbs up. You can also subscribe as well. I'm Trevor Beggs, and you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.
Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.